and then we'll get the multicast in there. Hi, Linda.
Good morning.
Yes, it's so good to have you back.
Welcome.
It's great to be back. Looking
Hi,
forward
Linda.
to this
Welcome back.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
It should be a good one. Just based on our little rehearsal here, I think it's going to be great. I think we picked a good perspective to work from.
Yeah, love it. Well, so I am eager to get started and can't wait to hear what the questions are and what's on the top of people's minds.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be good. So I know that we're going to get started here, and let me see here just to check on we're all broadcasting right, because the last time I didn't have this quite set up. I was missing you, Jules. And
I'm sorry. I failed everybody.
No, that's all right.
I was like in the middle of nowhere getting bitten by mosquitoes and trying to use the data, but it just didn't want to connect me, unfortunately. So, but it's good to be back in some civilization with some proper Wi-Fi. So hopefully my Wi-Fi will be good and it'll last the whole hour.
Well, I can relate with that, Jules. So I just get bitten by other creatures, not just mosquitoes.
Hopefully no crocodiles, but
no crocodiles, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Char, you're back down in Mexico now and getting all set up, and Jules, you're still in Colombia, right? Enjoying Colombia.
I'm in Colombia. Yeah,
Yes.
I've seen like a lot of the country.
Yeah.
So I'm in Bogota right now, but I've done Medellin, Cartagena, a few little like small cute towns. So been traveling a lot. It's nice. I think I'm losing my voice because I've been going from like really hot temperatures to really cold temperatures. So now I'm like, but all good.
Well,
It's a
how
beautiful
fun.
area. I've visited down there too. It's awesome.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a fun country. A lot of fun people.
Right.
Yeah.
But I definitely need the diet when I come back. It's just such a meat heavy diet down here, and like carbs, and a lot of plantains. I love my plantains, but yeah, I'll be happy to just like do smoothies and salads again. Detox a little.
Right. Well, we are at the top of the hour already, so I know we're starting, or we're talking a lot about our experiences and getting ready for the end of the year and our travels and so forth. But let me go ahead and start the session, and we can get kicked off here. So Jules, why don't you take it from the top?
Yeah, for sure. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the People Strategies Forum. So good to have you here, whether you are one of our very loyal listeners that tunes in every week, or maybe you're a newcomer. I want to give you a bit of an idea of what we do here at the People Strategies Forum if it's your first time. So you can really think of this, it's a mastermind of leaders. We get together every week, and really our goal is to help create workplaces where people will thrive. We help organizations and managers help reward their employers and employees, and create places where customers will love. So today we have a very special guest, Linda Rad. She's here with us today. I'm going to introduce her in just a second, but I'll introduce you to our other hosts. My name is Jules, and I help host this forum each and every week. And not only do I introduce our speaker, but I also hang out in the chat. So if you have any questions at all, please don't be shy, put them in there. And even if you're coming to us from a different platform outside of Zoom, we do love your questions, put them in. We will get to those at the very end of the session. And our other hosts include Shar. And Shar is, she started as an HR expert. She worked in the corporate world for many, many years before deciding, hey, I want to branch out and work for myself. And she is now the founder and current CEO of Rocky Mountain Health Advocates. So lovely to have her here. Enjoying the sunshine down in Mexico, I'm sure.
Yeah, and trying to manage my employees from afar. So, it's today's topic is going to be very intriguing to me, because the remote world is a whole new dynamic.
Yes,
for sure.
Whole new beast. Sumit, I don't think Sumit will be joining us today, if I'm correct, Sam. I'm not sure if he hasn't hopped on yet. Maybe he'll hop on shortly. And then we have Sam, the founder and CEO of Comp Team. Sam is a compensation expert, and he helps so many companies restructure all their rewards programs, their compensation programs, so that they can function a lot better. And he is also the creator of this forum. So let me introduce you to Linda Rad. We are so excited to have her here. We were chatting with her a little bit before, so that's why we kind of, we normally start our broadcast a little earlier, I know, but we wanted to get every bit of information out of her that we could so that we could cater this session as best as we can for you today. So Linda is an executive and team coach, HR and OD consultant, and leadership developer. So through her company Envision Leadership Consulting, she helps create a culture change throughout different companies. And she does this through not just coaching, but also planning, emotional intelligence workshops, assessments, and much, much more. So we are talking a bit about coaching through coaching managers in a hybrid environment today. So it will be very, we're taking it from a different perspective. So I'm very excited to have Linda here. She's been here before, and it's just great to have you here, Linda. We're very excited.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yes.
Yeah. So
All right,
as
Sam,
we,
where would you like to get started?
yeah, so let's just jump in. I mean, I think the big question that I know some of our longtime listeners, Linda, have heard you before. I think it was maybe a year ago or so now. So I know we've evolved quite a bit. And so just to introduce you to our listeners, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into the consulting world where you're at now and helping companies with their leadership and so forth? How did that all happen?
Yeah. So without all the details, I'll just share the last 3 years. I've been working on my own in my own business, Envision Leadership Consulting, and it's something I always wanted to do, and had every excuse not to do it. And so after I learned a little bit about my own BS and the stories I told myself, I decided to just step into it. And I did, and it's been the best decision I've ever made. And so really my focus is on helping both leaders and individuals with what their purpose is,
Mm-hmm.
what their passions are, what their talents are, and how that can really help the workplace culture. And so I do that through, of course, the team coaching, leadership coaching, consulting, and workshops. But it's been the best decision I've made. I have a long background in organizational development, in leadership development, in bringing in coaching programs into organizations. And I'm continuing to do that even in my spare volunteer time. But, and then my education has always been in HR, in OD, in organizational leadership.
Yeah, well, what a time to be in the business. I mean,
Love it.
right now, as we all know, all our listeners know out there, there's been a revolution as far as not just on the business side, but also on the employee side about, geez, what are our passions? Where should we be focusing our attention in the future, and so forth. So getting guidance like yours, Linda, is quite important. Having those critical discussions on reframing our mindset on how we reach out to our employees. How do we change our management style to involve the new framework, which we're going to talk about today? Mm-hmm. And then also how are our customer preferences changing for businesses as well? So I think this is quite important to go through all of this. Yeah. So tell us, Linda, I mean, what are you seeing? What are some of the high demand items that you're seeing from your clients right now and navigating this change?
Yeah, well, I think exactly that, Sam, which is how do we navigate change? How do we actually move through this in a way that is both equitable as well as empowering for our employees while still getting the business results that we really need? And so how do we make those changes, not just through a top-down approach, which is kind of the old-fashioned way.
Right. And one of the things as I know we were discussing this earlier, Linda, as far as what I'm seeing in with my clients and different places in the market is, managers are really struggling with, their philosophy on bringing people back to work how to manage in the hybrid environment, and then also those remote workers. And right now, there's a lot of managers are struggling with this change. They're in their old mindset of if I just have people back in the office, I know I can use that old skill set of mine of about measuring performance and understanding who's ready for promotion and all these things that are in their old toolbox, that is based on the reality of people being in the office. And now that we have basically 3 different categories of workers right now, we have those that are in the office full time, we have the hybrid workforce, people that are in and out of the office, and those that are fully remote. And I guess part of that fully remote subcategory are those that are global nomads that are traveling in many different places across the globe, or such as we're seeing from Jules and Shah right here is a good example.
Yeah.
So there's different environments for managers to be familiar with now, and that's just disrupted their overall previous approach, as I mentioned in that toolbox. And so, how are you seeing managers deal with this situation, Linda?
Yeah. Well, just like you, I think it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think some people are relying on their old skills of command and control in some ways. And maybe it worked. I don't know if it ever really worked, but maybe it worked in the past. Mm-hmm. But we're all realizing that there's change, right? Tons of change. We talk about the VUCA environment. And really in this change, it really calls upon us as leaders to get really clear and focused about what's most important, what really deserves our attention the most. And that's a question that we have to struggle with first. Okay. And not just once, but multiple times. Right?
So what is the first step? How do they find out or discover, what is important? What should they be addressing as the first pieces in this, and to ensure that they have fairness and equity across their workforce, and then they can actually manage correctly in these different environments, whether hybrid, fully remote, or in the office?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is understanding what's happening around us, right? Doing some assessment and really looking at what's the external environment and what's the internal environment. And what is it that we need as far as results? And what is it that our employees need as far as work environment? And it's changing. And so when we talk about fairness versus equity, different things come up. Mm-hmm. And we try to marry that with the business needs. And so getting really clear about both the headwinds and the tailwinds, and finding out what's a goal. If the goal is to do this, who do we have on board? And what are their needs? Right. How do we accomplish this together? And a lot of that comes through engaging and empowering our employees to be part of the solution.
Yeah, and when I often talk to clients about this, I call it the 3-legged stool, which is you have the company's needs, of course, you have your customers' needs, and then you have your employees' needs, or so there's all these different pieces. And if they're not balanced, of course, you get a wobbly stool, right? So that's the piece. So I think that I usually say, hey, we need to understand who our stakeholders are, and then talk to our stakeholders in this new environment. So you just mentioned employees, reaching out to employees and understanding their new needs. How do we do that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it has to be a lot more intentional, especially in this hybrid environment, right? And maybe even in the physical environment. So regardless if somebody is in the office, they're working remotely, or it's a hybrid situation, how do we set aside intentional time to really be present and ask questions and listen? And that's a role of the manager. The role of the leader is to make sure we are intentionally building time in to have those conversations.
Okay. And I imagine depending on the size of company, that can come in a lot of different forms. I mean, I know we've talked about on this forum in the past few months about doing those stay interviews with our employees, or managers are interacting directly with them and asking, the critical questions. Hey, what is important to you? What do you like about working here? What are the things that you don't like about working here? Different things like that. But when we look at, and I imagine this can still be done in some of the largest organizations, but are there other techniques such as potentially like surveys or things that you've seen work well?
Oh, absolutely. Depending on the environment, right? For smaller companies or organizations, it may be that just face-to-face conversations are the best way to go. And it could be whether it's a walking meeting and having a conversation and doing some coaching or getting input, or whether it's online, on Zoom, on Microsoft Teams, but it's that intentionality of creating that environment. That's important. And so I think besides setting up the time, being present, deciding what's the best methodology. Maybe it is a survey. Maybe it is a focus group. Maybe it is really just engaging face to face, one-on-one with different people. That in this environment, face-to-face is always best.
Right.
However, it's not practical as much right now. So how do we create that same sense of safety, especially when we have, I think it was called, let me see if I can remember this, FUD, which is, there's a lot, have you heard of this?
No, but it just sounds amusing, FUD. So
yeah, the FUD environment. And what it is fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Okay.
And especially when people can feel isolated and they don't feel like maybe they're in on all the conversations or they're able to provide input, those things come up. So intentionally creating that environment where in the workplace culture, whether it's virtual or not, is really important. And so I know we're always trying to balance work and relationships, and if it's all work and no relationship, we pay the price. It's the same if it's only relationship and no work. So we're trying to achieve that being in a relationship with our work and task orientation. But that takes intentionality.
Yeah, so let's come back to that concept. I want to talk about that in just a moment. But let's when we're talking about the understanding the stakeholders, we talked about employees, and there's also the customer and what the company can do. And so let's talk about the customer, because I know Shar has some unique experience here, especially with her business, and understanding what is needed. So we need to look about how the customer's needs have changed. Ensuring, I mean, we've talked about, of course, the safety aspects and so forth, but there's the customer need is changing a bit. That is influencing our ability to, whether we have people that are hybrid or that need to show up and so forth. So I know, Shar, I mean, you have locations where people come in and they actually come in for health screening and so forth. So can you tell us about a little bit how you've seen the customer needs change through this time?
Yeah, with my company, it's been very interesting transition. My company deals with health advocacy and health screenings, and it's been a very interesting transition to try to provide services, be it remotely through telehealth, and or face-to-face, as you talk about, Linda, and then also try to offer the remote aspect. Also the federal and the regulatory changes with some of our regulatory testing, laboratory testing. So to support my employees through the change, every day we have a change. I mean, seriously, I can tell you every single day there's something new and changing in my industry. So communication has been absolutely vital. We have an approach of being 1,000,000% transparent so that our employees never feel good or bad news. At least they know they're always in the know. this rule came out, this law changed this, the laboratories accept this, they don't accept that. I mean, so we are almost to the point of default of transparency, but my leadership really has to have a lot of one-on-ones. And although I'm down here in Puerto Vallarta, I do go back almost every month or every other month, or my partner Bruce goes back every month or every other month as owners of the company, to have that face-to-face interaction with our employees, so that they know that we're not on some long haul vacation down here. We're literally working here day to day, every day, talking to all the labs and all of our partners and physicians every day. And then we go down and have face-to-face conversations. And then my leaders are expected to have one-on-ones with their employees every week. And my director is expected of the same, not only face-to-face drop-ins, but also one-on-one meetings. And then we utilize the TMA, which is our sponsor, to have some structure and coordination around what those conversations look like around positive psychology and positive coaching. So it's not all about negativity and negative change. So I think we've really found a sweet spot in the science of what we're using with my company. Although we've been going through some hardship out of our control, but at least my employees know where they stand.
Yeah.
And that's really helped with our employee engagement.
So I think you pointed out a couple of really good things there, Shar. I mean, you mentioned that some of the customer preferences are changing for they're not just coming in to your sites anymore. They're asking for some remote treatment or so they don't have to come in. And so that you're making some adaptations there. The other thing that other themes that you mentioned that I see that are such as transparency, more transparency in what's going on in the company and in communication. I think that's definitely something that's been amplified over the past several months. So I thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's not, I can't tell you it's been easy, because, obviously there are employees that will, from a retention standpoint, will leave, particularly if we're having to reduce hours, or if we're maybe needing to readjust our locations, or maybe moving our business strategy. And some employees don't really like that ambiguity of their future career momentum. So although, as you know, Sam, we're very generous with our pay, but we're also not necessarily the most, the kind of company that's like the most consistent with our business. So yeah, we've dealt with some fallout, I guess you would say. Some of our most loyal employees know that if they hang in there with us, that they're going to be well paid for part-time hours and have a great opportunity. But I think that the way I coordinate talent management strategy to support them through that change has really made a difference. I would say that my perspective around that has really changed from my corporate HR world. The way we handled change and all of the processes, I would say I would have a completely different recommendation today than I did 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Right.
That is also very much transformed, because I've actually been a real business owner.
Yeah, and I think that's the important piece, as Linda was talking about, is understanding and navigating that change management. And so one thing that I want to bring up as far as that third part of the stool that we're talking about, that third leg, is the company. And when I usually talk about this, it's our capabilities and how our current capabilities and how that is changing. So in this particular environment, and it's basically, we've been talking about how managers, how they've had the skill set, or they had the toolbox based on working, having people show up in the office, and now they need to get some new tools for the hybrid and remote environment. And so, and to Linda, your point, you mentioned we need to do an assessment. We need to understand how the capabilities that we currently have. And so, I imagine you've probably dealt with some clients that have determined, hey, we need to ramp up our management training and coaching around our managers to ensure that we have a consistent approach of how we treat people that are in the hybrid and remote environment, and also that are here in the office. How would you help clients go down that path?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because with all of this change, there's some key things we have to focus on. One is, it's always relationship first. We have to have connection before we can really give direction. And so checking in actually allowing that space, especially in a virtual environment, is so important, because we can get going so fast. We want to get right to task, right? And I'm guilty of this too. And so really taking a step back and making sure we understand. For some people, you don't even have the physical site. It might even be only over the phone. So you really don't know how some of your workforce is doing, how they're holding up, what's happening for them. And so having that connection is critical. And, you know, our ability to listen during this time, I think, has been diminished. Because
really, can you dive in a little bit more? Our ability to listen has been diminished.
Yes. Think about from the time you got up this morning.
Yeah.
The different types of social platforms or media platforms you've been on, whether it's text or Slack or Instagram or Zoom, team meetings, whatever it is, the amount of ways that we're connecting is greater than it's ever been. But that doesn't mean that it's as effective.
Right. Oh yeah, true. I mean, you're just talking about social media, and I'm just what's coming in my mind are these complaints I have with my wife, because she's a teacher, and so all of her students are on Snapchat. You know, they do the Snapchat thing, and I don't do Snapchat, and so anything, and if she's talking to our kids, she does Snapchat and stuff like this, and that's not part of my channel. That I don't. So when she's communicating with them through that, and she's sharing photos and stuff like this, and I totally miss out on all that. So
yeah, and you don't even do Facebook. I mean, and that's what old people do. So
yeah,
you're totally missing out.
I know. I need to up my game, right?
But all of these things really lead to overload, right?
Yeah.
And overwhelm. And so that's why intentionally making the space and being really present. And, you know, we talk about 3 different levels of listening. The one we do the most is the internal, where we're thinking about the shopping list, we're thinking about the Snapchat, we're thinking about our team, our staff, maybe a customer complaint or whatever it is, all at the same time. And the person in front of us really has no attention. And so it's an internal listening dialogue that's happening.
Right.
Where focus listening is on the person. Right.
Well, I think absolutely. And it's not just one social media platform. We literally have 10 now. Seriously. Everybody's connected to their phones. I would say we're all distracted very much all the time. And that doesn't go just for young people. Older people like us also are constantly distracted constantly. It's just kind of, so I love your phrase that you just said earlier. When we're moving so fast, you need to get to task. And I think you need to copyright that phrase and write a book about it.
There we go.
And because I am a living example of where my company is moving so fast and we're trying to get to task, but we're always just flying off the seat of our pants. And my employees feel it, and my employees get worried and concerned. And if we're not communicating, you know, it just leads to all kinds of HR problems, I guess, from a foundational HR perspective. So I think really analyzing that psychology of what's happening with our society and analyzing how to best listen, not only through technology, but also the face-to-face. I think it's really a hybrid, as you say. It's a combination of multiple avenues of how we communicate. And I think we need to layer them on to each other and really have a strategic approach in how we're listening, instead of just flying by the seat of our pants every time.
So I think we're onto something here. So, I mean, what comes to me is I'm thinking, just going back to my old experience, like in doing radios and how you change the channel, you know, so you can actually communicate. So is that what we need to do nowadays as companies? Do we need to select the platform that we're going to do our official communication through to ensure that we have that transparency and people are listening? Or is it important to have choice and to ensure that we're doing multiple channels and to provide that choice to our employees? What are you seeing? And what are your beliefs on that, Linda?
Yeah. So I've seen quite a few different things. I've seen companies that have many different channels, and they allow that complete choice. When there is not a clear communication channel for how you can get that transparent information and clear information, then it can be really confusing. So we talked about the FUD, the fear, the unknown or uncertainty, and then the doubt. Missing out on important conversations when you're in a virtual workspace is a real thing.
Yeah.
And so how do we get clarity about here's how you're going to find out information? Here's how you're going to be able to ask questions. And I'm just reminded of what was it this last week about the CEO who fired 900 employees?
Yeah, so it's all over social media right now, and he did it on a Zoom.
Yeah, and there was no like ability to ask questions or to find out exactly what else this might mean. And
Yeah,
so
he said something to the effect of, if you're on the Zoom, Carl, you're the unlucky ones that are going to lose your job, and HR is going to be sending you a letter soon.
Yeah. So not a great example of communication, effective communication that starts with people first, right?
Yeah.
That acknowledges the person in front of you and gives them the attention that they deserve. And then sharing information. So what's a clear communication channel? And then there might be multiple other channels that the company supports for colleagues and teams and supervisors to use. But having a clear communication channel can help reduce some of that fear or the feeling of being left out.
Well, we're a very teeny company, and I'll be very transparent. We've faced some federal laws that have changed our industry. But I also trust that my director is having a lot of one-on-ones with our employees all the time. So in addition to our weekly meetings, our staff meetings, and then the director and the managers having those conversations, we will have disgruntled employees with some of the changes that are coming up soon. But at least I do know that we have been 100% transparent. We've been talking to everybody, letting them know what's going on. And it really, and also we have GroupMe, which is another form of online communication. So that all of our employees have different avenues of how they're going to hear information. I don't know exactly about that that company. I haven't really searched it yet, but I got the impression, probably through whatever the news is, they may or may not, I'm assuming it sounded so cold as Daniel mentioned on the chat here.
Yeah.
They may not have had all those other avenues so that they could assure that senior leadership was communicating directly with the frontline leadership and the frontline staff. And maybe that's why the reaction was so negative and hit the social media platform so impactfully. Yeah.
Well, when we talk about leaders and all of us as leaders working with people, having high touch communication in this hybrid environment is critical. And so otherwise it lacks a human element, and it increases the isolation that a lot of people feel. And so high touch communication is key, as well as actually being present, listening, and asking questions.
Well, that is part of the reason why, Linda, I hired a director that had that high compassion, emotional intelligence, high empathy, and communication approach, that I knew that in these hard times that she would be able to do just that. And that took a very high level of competency, talent, drives, and ability to do that with my employees. And I knew, because my industry changes every day, that I needed that kind of talent. I trust my director to do those things. I often feel that the senior leadership working in more of a higher level executive corporate company world, sometimes we look at hiring leaders, senior leaders, particularly just about their outcomes and their numbers and their return on investment, but we forget the emotional intelligence, the ability to build relationships and build that credibility and honesty and authenticity with your employees. So to me, this is the people side of the business that I think often major companies tend to put on the back burner, But today, more than ever, is so important to be able to have that ability to really help your employees cope through these challenging and difficult times, not only as an operation, but also in their personal lives. This is such a critical element in hiring the right leaders to support your team.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe we have a question, Jules. Can you, do you have one of those?
Yeah. We do, yeah. So, I mean, obviously not everyone is a leader like Shah, not as transparent. They don't have that emotional intelligence that we're talking about. So the question here is, how do you then handle leaders who are not having the candid conversations with their employees and end up having a lot of turnover in their business because a lot of them still don't seem to realize there's a disconnect?
Yeah. So I love the question because, a leader of leaders, one of their primary functions or jobs is to develop and coach leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And so being a role model, first of all, and letting the leader see what the tools are, asking questions, being present. So actually modeling it is critical. And then actually being clear about what it is that's important, because what we focus on is what we get. And if we only focus on that balance of work and not relationships, then that's what we'll get. That's what's rewarded. And so we want to coach those leaders about having relationships and developing their own team and people. And you can ask their team members too, what is it that they need? Are they clear on their expectations? Do they have the resources they need? Do they know what's expected of them? Do they feel like this is Gallup?
Yeah.
Do they feel like they have the opportunity to learn and grow and develop? Do they have meaningful connections at work? And so you can ask those questions and then get clear about what's important, that balance between work and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for too long, a lot of leaders have felt like and have been evaluated based on the business results only and not the relationships.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a critical piece. One of the things that I'm seeing right now is the expanded use of coaches across companies. I mean, there's more than ever, leaders have found that we need to bring up the skill sets of certain managers across the organization. So, and to Monica's question here, if once we find out that there's a gap or a skill set gap, or that's indicated by turnover or discontent in the ranks in those particular under the managers, leadership needs to take action on this, and it's not just pointing out the problem to that manager and say, hey, there's something going on in your organization, you got to figure that out. I mean, we got to help them. We need to help them come to a natural, a holistic solution. And usually what I see now is signing them up or getting them with a coach that can help them up their skills. Yeah. So in a situation like this and bringing managers' skills up, Linda, how would you help a manager up their game?
Yeah, well, I love this because when we're talking about coaching, we're talking about really transformation. Mm-hmm. We're talking about change. So this is a change effort, and the person has to want the change, right? They have to want to change. And I have worked with teams and clients who either want to change or don't want to change. And sometimes that information, some of that assessment can help them to realize that their intent and the impact is very different. And so, first of all, making sure they want to be a part of this. Coaching isn't something that's done to someone. It's a partnership. It's a designed alliance, a co-creation of really what this person wants more of, right? And maybe what they want less of. Self-awareness is and self-efficacy is one of the leading characteristics of effective leaders. Yeah. And so helping that manager articulate what it is that they really want. What are their values? What is their vision? What is their legacy? And then how is that matched with how they're being perceived?
Mhm.
And bringing in some data there, and then helping them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Shar, go
Linda,
ahead.
you
Yeah.
just yet said another word that I love that just really struck me is designed alliance.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is so
That one
powerful.
struck me too. I was like, yes, I love that.
I
Yeah.
mean, that is so 100 million. Is that not true, guys? It's
Yeah.
not about the bureaucracy. It's not
100%.
about the politics. It's about the designed alliance in a positive setting that really produces the productivity
Right.
and the relationships to move the company forward. Sorry to interrupt you, Linda, but that
Oh
one
no,
just
I love
really
it.
struck
Yeah.
me.
Well, it's what we're creating. We're creating this safe space and container that a person can be who they are,
Mhm.
to say what they need to say, and to feel like they're not being judged. And then you start to understand some of their needs, right? Some of their interests, some of their fears, some of their hopes.
Yeah.
And then you help create a path forward for them to see some of their best self. And
Right.
what are the changes that they want to have happen so that they can have the impact that they really want to have. Honestly, I haven't met anybody in my coaching who has said, I want to be a tyrant. I want all my employees to quit. I want them to have stress because of me. I want them to quit,
Yeah.
most people's intent, that's not their intent.
Yeah.
But when they realize the impact is not what they want, and they see their higher self, then there's room, there's space to create that path forward, both with teams and with managers.
So
Mhm.
don't you think, Linda, that your approach of what you just talked about philosophically is really transformed and I would just say in the last decade, because everything was more about traditional performance management, traditional expectations.
Mhm.
You get punitive results, not only with your raise, but also you get written up or you get a doc on your performance, whatever. But now what you're talking about is completely transformative. It's
Mhm.
about how can you be your best self? How
Yep.
can you have a trend? How can you bring your very best ability to this company? And I champion you in a very positive light.
Yeah.
So don't you think it's changed now? I mean, even from a decade ago in HR?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just think if in our companies we had our own designed alliance.
Mhm.
Yes. I have the chills because that is exactly what I call myself, HR with a heart, if you remember my old saying.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what I meant, HR with a heart. You got to have
Yeah.
heart about how you take care of your people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about, Linda.
Honestly, I think with all the change that's happened and the stress, we become not our best self.
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
engage in habits and communication that doesn't reflect who we want to be truly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And
But I
so,
think, yeah,
yeah.
and I think one of the challenging things for HR professionals that may listen to this is how do you coach and mentor your executive team to really embrace this philosophy?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
I think your HR people, your OD people, your cultural professionals that work in the companies, my personal challenge, even right now, is how do you help your CEOs, your CFOs, your money tight guys and gals that really only focus on that, but not this. And I think that's a language we need to learn how to communicate.
I do. I think part of the big piece is that in the old mindset, leaders and managers thought, oh, okay, well, I went to business school. I completed college. I'm supposed to know how to do this stuff, and then they get into the environment and they don't feel like it, that they're supposed to ask for help from outsiders.
Mhm.
Now a lot of companies also have the old mindset that's saying, well, we got learning and development, and we got we have HR, and they can help you figure this out and coach you on doing that stuff.
Mhm.
But a lot of times we're talking about a more human environment more than ever in the past, and we're not talking about, okay, how do you hire and fire and do promotions and those mechanics that are part of the talent equation of old. We're talking about how to have effective conversations with critical stakeholders, how to be more influential, how to up my game as a leader and develop as a leader and so forth. And a lot of times leaders or managers internally, they don't want to hang out their dirty laundry to HR or learning and development and have these critical conversations. It puts them in a stance of they have to be extremely vulnerable in a solution like that, and they have to trust that person to be able to hold that information in the way that they would like. But by getting an external coach, you can connect with somebody that has your same style of communication, that you can foster trust and that confidentiality that really can get you to your next game. I mean, myself, I had this struggle years ago, and I never asked for help and didn't have a coach. And now I have like 5 different coaches for different parts of my business. It's like I have a business coach, I got a consulting coach, I got a presence coach. Here, Char or Jules is on here as a on camera coach, and so there's it's important piece that to have in our lives as we move forward. And so,
well, you coach us too, Sam. So.
Yeah, thanks.
Everyone's helping each other. We can all learn so much from one another, and that's where
Right.
listening comes in.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and there's a difference between professional coaches and leaders as coach.
Yeah.
And so, Harvard Business Review did a study where they asked executives, "Are you a great coach?" And most of them said, "Absolutely, I'm a great coach." And then they asked the people that reported to them, "Is this person a great coach?" And almost overwhelmingly, their team said no.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found as a mismatch was that there was almost like a consulting style of the leader where they gave them advice, they told them what to do, they told them, here's what I would do if I were you. They tried to provide them solutions and fix them, and that's not coaching. And so, for the leaders on your webinar, really practicing being present and listening, and then asking questions to uncover the brilliance that is already there within your team members and help bring that out is what's going to grow and develop people and make them feel engaged and want to stay. And so, that's what we're trying to get to. How do we change the way we interact and engage with our teams so that we don't have to be the technical expert? They're the technical expert.
Right. You just have a way with words, Linda. I mean, this like
Are you catching those
brilliance.
golden nuggets, Sam? I mean, we need to be writing down these.
Yeah, for sure. So, and one of the things I know some of our listeners have mentioned in the chat, as far as, what if your leaders are resistant to coaching? And so and this is something I've come across. I mean, there's pointing out the type of mindset. There's a fixed mindset and their growth mindset. And if any leader out there believes that they know it all and there's nothing else to learn, is going to be deteriorating in their environment. As we know in society and what's happened in our culture and the globe, is that change happens and it's happening really fast these past few years.
Faster than ever.
Yeah, that's right. And to the extent that you're not looking up for advice and you're not asking down the chain for advice too. I mean, there's mentors that have been there, done that, and there's also down in our community some of those new emerging professionals that are getting into the workplace have a lot of knowledge. And we were just talking about Snapchat and so forth that I haven't adapted to, and hopefully I don't have to. But there's pieces that are coming up that of technology and so forth that we need to reach down and embrace our new employees, that they have that knowledge and bring that into our mindset. So that growth mindset is critical, and we can learn from everyone.
Well, we have to, Sam, honestly, because I mean, as you know, a 50-year-old here, okay, 51, whatever. But you know, I swear, it's like, I'm like, what the hell? I can't even log into all my different platforms and keep up with them anymore. But I also know that my employees are so engaged in all of that. I mean, technology wise, we have to keep up with it. And it's an opportunity. So I think it's like you were just saying, it's like a three-way street, four-way street. We all got to help each other. We have to help each other from a different, not only from how old we are, and you know, also from a technology standpoint, from a experience standpoint. I think building that culture and that atmosphere where we all appreciate each other at an equal level. It's not about your fancy title or your fancy pay, or if you have a corner office, or if you live in a cubicle, or you work from home. I mean, I think it's an entirely new culture that is developing in our professional atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I believe that we need to open our minds and be more open and having honest, frank conversations about what's going to help each other be the most successful. That's why I love what you're doing, Linda, because I think that I think Daniel said you're spot on. There's various things that you're saying that can resonate. I mean, obviously you're not a millennial, no offense, but I mean, or I'm not either. But you know, it's like, but the whole psychological attitude about how we need to conform, or not conform, but to reinvent the way we communicate is going to be vital to our business, or we're going to die.
That's right. Yeah. So if there's one book I could recommend for any of your listeners who are like, I'm not sure what to do. I don't know where to start. You know, the book, The Coaching Habit by Michael Bengay Stenger, I think his name is incredible. It's an easy read. It's a really easy read. And it gives you basically like 8 questions to use and when to use them. And
we need a book club.
Yeah, that's right. It's an incredible book. And so I give it to a lot of my clients who are leaders who are trying to develop more of a coaching style and approach. Because for some of us like me, it's a natural to tell when I talk rather than ask questions. And so it really takes some shifting in curiosity when we ask questions rather than tell people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think employees get really shut down if they have an executive team that constantly is telling, particularly in management meetings, just tell.
That's
right.
Good point.
Well, we are quickly approaching the top of the hour here. So I do want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor, TMA. And so as we were talking through this conversation, we're talking about understanding what the sentiment of what our employees are looking for and so forth. And so the TMA is an excellent tool to be able to understand the different types of working styles and preferences of our employees. And so it has a great assessment that you can send out to your employees, and they complete that. And through that assessment, you can understand, how they like to be interacted with and so forth. It's not a how good you do your job type of thing. It's designed around having a comfortable dialogue and getting to know your people more closely in a professional environment. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the TMA method, please reach out to me and I'll send you a free assessment so you can learn for yourself.
And I have to say, I've utilized this tool with my company and I've learned how to operationalize it. We utilize it in every area of recruiting, coaching, onboarding, offboarding, promoting every single aspect of my former HR and mindset. And we've converted it into this new positive psychology mindset around talents and drives. It's a phenomenal tool as long as you can apply it uniquely in your industry. So, so Sam, you've got a whole team of us that are talent management experts that could provide that consulting perspective.
That's right. Yeah. So if there's definitely how to leverage these tools, because TMA has not just a desktop software or a SaaS software that you can use for your company that helps you run these assessments and so forth, but they also have online tools or mobile tools that you can use for hiring, and the whole talent cycle. So, and I know Shar is used this in her business. She's a professional and she does coaching around this. And we have other people that can help you as well. Also, I want to recognize our speaker for next week. We're going to have Julie Davis join us, and she's going to talk about inspiring your people in their for that career journey in 2022. So I know we're getting towards the end of the year, and we were all thinking about, geez, what are our goals for next year, and how do we show up better as leaders? How do we set up those objectives for ourselves so that we can thrive in the new year? Well, she's going to kick us off on that process. So join us next week and listen to Julie Davis take us through that journey. All right. Well, as we are wrapping up here, if anybody has any additional questions for Linda, please drop them into the chat. But Linda, I mean, for somebody to learn more about what you've been talking about today, and to reach out and connect you to learn more about how you coach and the different services you provide, how do they learn more about you?
Yeah, so I don't know if my email was on the slide or not, but you could also go out to envisionleadershipconsulting.com. There's a website there and you can connect with me there. My phone number is also out there. So happy to speak with anyone who's thinking about hybrid work environment, coaching, or team coaching.
Great. Yes, Envision Leadership Consulting. So please go out there and take a look at Linda's website.
I'm just popping that into the chat now, but I'm doing this on my phone. So yeah, okay, the link went through.
I know. So once again, examples of the future workforce. So as Jules is out traveling and traveling the world and doing work on the phone. I know we had a conversation not too long ago about how the mobile environment has just amplified over the past few years, allowing people to work from anywhere they'd like. And so we're seeing a live example of that right now.
Mm-hmm. we got to make it happen,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
phones seem to be better than laptops these days.
That's true. You get some really good quality. I mean, it is. I think that the computer manufacturers out there need to up their game to stay on top of it for sure.
Yeah.
Just need your phone and your tripod and some good lighting, and that's all you need, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jules, you know all about that. That's what you help people show up best on camera,
Yes.
right?
That's my
Contact
thing.
Jules
That's
for
my
that
thing.
kind of help.
All right. It's been a wonderful conversation, Linda. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank you so
your
much.
expertise.
Yes.
All
Good-
right.
Thank you,
Good to
Linda.
see everyone.
Thank you, Linda. It's a
Right.
pleasure seeing you
Take
again.
care. Yeah.
Until next time, we'll catch you next week on the People Strategy Forum. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.